Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury. Electrifying.
Yes, guys, welcome back to another episode. Oh, no, welcome back to the Cannon Podcast. Yes, guys, welcome back to the Cannon Podcast and another episode of Scouted, here to talk about Oliver Watkins. We have just done an hour looking at clips of Ollie Watkins on White Scouts. So, yeah, clips of him in all sorts of different situations, attacking duels and shots and breaking down his movement and all that sort of stuff with clips, which is always really, really interesting to sort of contextualize stuff with the players. If you've never checked out an episode of Scout before, yeah, really interesting one. We've got lots of episodes at this point, George. I just tasked you to have a look through. Who have we done?
Yeah, we've done a crazy amount of scouts at this point. We've got Asana Diao, who's now at Como. We did do Victor Gyökeres. We've got several on Benjamin Sesko, Nico Williams. We've even done some on, of our own players like Miles Lewis-Skelly, Ethan Nwaneri, Jesus, Odegaard, Vieira. But, some of the others, including Semenyo, Mateus Cunha, Brian Mbeumo, Bradley Barcola. There is a plethora of stuff here for you guys. At this point, I think there's almost something like 59 scouted episodes in total, in terms of like some of the videos we've got, if you include some of the patrons, which I would go to and really promote. And of course, some of the recent ones that we've done, Jamie by New Giddens, Rodrigo, Dean, Hueyson. I hate that I was having to pronounce these names, but there you go.
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, not to say this is sort of, just a promo for that, but there is a lot of episodes there. So if you want to go check that out, you not only get access to the Ollie Watkins Scouted, but you get access to all those as well. But we are here to talk about Watkins. We're here to talk about the player, the deal, what this could mean, what we like about him, what we don't like about him, all that good stuff. I think the bulk of this will be sort of discussing the kind of, I guess, almost the meaning of the player and the deal and so on and so forth. I love the sort of point we came to a number of times in the Scout, which is basically Ollie Watkins is an A- of a player. If an alien landed on Earth, George, and had never seen Ollie Watkins play, what do you love about him and what are his limitations?
Just does the basics of football, mate. Like that is, kind of the line that you're going to say with an Ollie Watkins. He is somebody that is a seasoned vet. He's I want to reference the journey because I think it's important to the mentality about why he's gotten to this stage. Very atypical journey in football. Arrived on the scene quite late and through hard work. And I don't mean this as a way that he doesn't have skill, but it's really important to understanding the player Ollie Watkins because he's developed skills to his bow. Exactly what you talked about. If I was to give you a really quick pro and con list, not to waffle too much about the narrative and why I love the story of the player, more so he's a phenomenal outlet over a press. He's really quite physical. And in terms of being able to interact with midfield as far as receiving, good first touch, and then bring others into play, he's phenomenal at that. But equally, he's a very good stretcher of the ball. And so he can run off the last shoulder. He can very much drift out wide left. People that are talking about how Gyökeres really can drift out wide to the touchline and then carry the ball. Ollie Watkins does that for Villa quite a bit. And I actually don't think that gets talked about because maybe it's not something that people watch Villa with quite enough. But he does do that and he can go off both sides. Actually, very good weak foot usage in general. Whether that's on the run, picking his head up to find crosses, or even just finishing off with his left foot. He's got a good weak foot. And then aerially, I think in the box, the one thing that you're looking at is phenomenal movement, very good movement in the box, can get the ball out of his feet quick and very good ball striking technique, consistently gets good power, good technique on the shot. The thing is, again, these top elite movements, so even if you're going to pick out his aerial skills, he's going to have brilliant hang time, brilliant movement to get to the ball, but the guiding of his headers could be better. In terms of the shot, or the ball striking rather, great technique, great shift and shoot, does get shots blocked at times. Won't always, finish his chances. I think he's top, you were saying, for big chances missed. So along with, by the way, every big striker in the league. But regardless, it's something to talk about because he's not going to leather it like a Sesko. It's not going to be a Marcus Rashford. If you're looking for 10 out of 10 in that regard, you won't get it. But that could be applied to Ollie Watkins in every single facet because you're looking at somebody that does an 8 to 9 out of 10 in most things. And as far as what he does, I think players will love to play with Ollie Watkins because he does all the dirty work. But if you're asking for a player to kind of come deep, secure the ball, keep you up into play, and then carry it the 30, 40 yards to do a spectacular goal, that won't be Ollie Watkins. But he will do all the former. He will get you the ball, keep you in the final third, and then generate a dangerous situation for somebody to finish for the team, whilst, by the way, getting an underrated amount of output. If you look over the last 2 years, Ollie Watkins is consistently, I think, top 3 or 4 in the league for goals and output from a pure output perspective. So it's a player that I have obviously liked quite a bit. I like even more in the context of the deal, which we will definitely get into, but those are his pros and cons from a trait perspective.
Yeah, I think it's well broken down. I think the thing that really appears to me with Watkins is sometimes when someone is just really well rounded and has, yes, some weaknesses, but also some strengths, but nothing. You look at Benjamin Sesko and you watch a goal like once he scores from outside the box, whatever, and you go, "Oh my goodness me, bring!" Or you look at the pace of Mbappe or whatever it might be. There is a isolated skill, and as I said in the Scouted, I think he is one of the best I've ever seen at the shot across his body in terms of putting it in the bottom corner, but it's quite hard sometimes with Watkins to see what he is, and you had to sort of go, okay, he's very good at this, very good at this, and he doesn't necessarily get a reputation bounce from having one brilliant thing, but he is really, really well rounded. And I think just when we come to his numbers, you sort of see that reflected as well in terms of the non-penalty goals, in terms of the non-penalty XG, in terms of the open play shots, XG per shot, post-shot XG added. You go through his numbers and generally he's just pretty well rounded. There's a couple of things that maybe he's a little bit weaker on, but there's no massive weakness to his game. And I think as well, in terms of his numbers, I said this again in the Scouted, I don't want him to sneer at this as an oh God's sake, Ollie Watkins, because we're used to it. And we don't necessarily have an excitement because he's a name from abroad. And yeah, when we come to the deal, there's a lot there as well. You sort of mentioned a little bit earlier as well. I just want to come to the numbers in terms of across the last couple of years in the Premier League. So since he came to the Premier League and started playing for Aston Villa in 2021, he's been consistent in terms of, I think it's 37 appearances, 35 appearances, 37 appearances, 38 appearances, again, sort of rarely injured. 14 goals in his first season, had a little drop in the second year to 11. Then he went 15, then he went 19 in 23-24, then he went 16 in 24-25. There's some really, really good numbers for Watkins. And also in terms of his assists, he got 8 assists this year, 15 assists in 23-24. I think that season he was somewhere in the top 5 or 6 or something for across Europe, top 5 leagues in terms of just pure output. So we can hear the name and we can go, oh, Ollie Watkins or whatever, and maybe also hear the price tag of whatever it ends up being and sort of go, well, is that exactly what we want? He's nearly 30,
yeah.
We'll joke about that, but I don't want it to go underrated. Just in terms of the sort of the way we'd use him before we come on to the deal aspect of it. Obviously, centre forward is the position we're looking at, but you've also mentioned as a second striker, etc. I think drifting wide is exciting. I think he's someone who could play across the front three. How would you see him fitting in at Arsenal?
So, in the way that people look at Gyökeres and Jesus, who has been able to drift out wide as a striker, may line up as a number 9, but goes wide, literally touchline to receive as an outlet. He can do those things, and he's got quite good dribbling, actually. So he can go in and out. So he will drift wide. I don't think he'll start wide necessarily. So much in the same way those strikers wouldn't. He can be a false 9 in that aspect, really dropping into midfield. I think I would look at a pairing between an Ollie Watkins and a Kai Havertz as a front 2 partnership and get quite excited because Ollie Watkins really is that sturdy frame, fulcrum 9 that, Havertz can work off of. That's the physical backboard that, he can stretch off of. And so if Havertz is in quote unquote midfield from a second striker role and Watkins is coming deep to really deal with all the contact and the layoffs, Havertz can really stretch teams off the jump in that respect. But I think you're looking at pure like a number 9. No big analysis here.
Yeah.
He can be a box outlet. And we were actually having this debate in, the Patreon video. The roles at Brentford versus Villa are quite different. Like we can park the discussion about maybe transferable stuff about what he would do for Arsenal specific. But if you're looking at like who Ollie Watkins can be, 100% he can be a box or a fox in the box type of center forward. And he showed that for Brentford quite consistently. Yeah. I don't know if we're using him in that way, but he can be. So just so that you can keep it in mind as far as the roles, those are the two options I would say. But yeah, I don't think he's got necessarily like the left wing starting position, but he will drift left wing. He will drift out to the right. He'll drift touchline to be an outlet for balls over the top and to drag his team up the pitch in transition. But yeah, you're looking at a number 9. No major analysis needed there.
For sure. Yeah, just as we move on from the player, I think maybe we haven't necessarily mentioned, I think in the scout there was some issues with contact, but when he uses his technique to deal with that contact, there isn't necessarily a massive problem. It's a little bit inconsistent, but maybe that's a bit of a weakness. As we mentioned as well, in terms of his big chances missed, he's right up there in terms of the Premier League. He's top, but he's alongside Salah and Haaland and Isak and so on. So I think that's probably also, as you mentioned, maybe also arguably a good thing. But he does miss big chances, so that is definitely a weakness for him. And yeah, I think that I really love that summation of him as that you said, as an A- student. It's like, that is brilliant in some ways, but he's not elite at anything. But then we come to the deal, and in conjunction with other players, and you start to say, okay, I might be able to deal with A- if you're not my sort of guaranteed, the guy I expected to sort of get me over the line. So let's talk about the deal, because I think that's really where a lot of this comes from. I just want to give some numbers to sort of contextualize this. So Aston Villa, this is from the Telegraph. Aston Villa had the 10th highest wage bill in Europe last season, more than Bundesliga champions Bayern Munich. UEFA's squad cost ratio rules will drop next season, setting the amount clubs can spend of their revenue on player costs at 70%. Just want to bring this up as well. This graph from Sky. Just bring this up. So this is wages to revenue based on Deloitte's Football Money League in 2025. Premier League clubs with world top 20 revenue. Aston Villa have 96% of their wages to revenue. Their revenue spent on wages. Obviously, PGMOL proved their anti-Arsenal agenda by kicking them out of the Champions League, and meaning we can't get Isak. It's a big problem for them, and I think it represents an opportunity, not just on Watkins. We're not talking about them today, but Onana and Tielemans and for Villa. Not just on for Watkins for us, because we can look at other players like Onana and Tielemans, so on and so forth. But just in light of that, in terms of the price tag and getting someone out of Villa, I think this represents a big opportunity. And if we did want to move for Watkins, I don't think it would be anywhere near the 60 million they were looking for in January.
No, and that is the context of the deal. Like when we're talking about them, there being an A- and a lot of win now perspective, I want to reiterate, because this goes unnoticed, Ollie Watkins is a top 3 Golden Boot chaser in the last 2 years. If you look over the last 2 years, he is the 3rd most productive forward in the league. Yep. So let's just not ignore the output as far as that. But you're getting that for a £45 million package, I would argue. Maybe 50
less.
million pounds.
I would say maybe less.
Yeah, maybe less. I want to be fair. So maybe certainly there's room to squeeze Villa much more than there was in January when they had just sold Duran. And right now you're looking at a 30-year-old asset that, for me, it's one of their top earners, not the highest earner, but it's one of their top earners for a 30-year-old that they're not going to get the money back on. So there's certainly room to squeeze. And if you're buying Ollie Watkins for 45 million pounds, 50 million pounds at a push, and you're combining the 45 million with a 50 million in Mbeumo versus an 89 million pound Ekitike or a 75 million pound Sesko, you need to start asking questions of yourself. And that is the context of this deal, because you are getting an A- student who in the interim in his specific role really impacts the team, but potentially gives you the opportunity to really solve a front line. And the debate's going to be that an Ollie Watkins allows 2 wingers. From a pure numbers perspective, like if we were looking at the dream situation, most fans actually wouldn't even just admit that Alexander Isak on his own is the role. Yep. Like that wasn't what we said. Even if we were considering Isak, it was Isak plus Nico Williams. It was Isak plus a left winger, right? Like the narrative was never just Isak. So when you look at that, minimum, that was 130 million pounds as a budget. If you're starting to look at that plus a Nico Williams, you're saying, okay, we've at least got 150, 160 million pounds of a forward budget. 45 spent on Watkins means you can 100% use the next 100 million on 2 wingers. And so the debate needs to be, do you believe 3 forwards is worth the 2 forward option because we no longer believe Isak is a possibility? In an Isak-less world, are we saying that whatever combination you want as your favorite forward is 3 forwards worth better than 2, understanding that Isak is no longer on the table? That's a debate that I think it's worth having within the fan base. And it's why I love the Watkins options so much. There's a lot of player-specific things I get excited about that can transfer to Arsenal, but I love the idea of, in an Isak-less world, I can get 3 forwards. And one of them, being the cheapest, is still win now, is still impactful, and is factually a top 3 golden boot chaser in the Premier League for the last 2 years.
Yeah, and I don't want to underplay that aspect of it. I really think it's an important aspect of it. I was trying to find some numbers in terms of in the top 5 leagues, but certainly for last season, let me just try and bring that up now. But Watkins is right up there. Yeah, he was third last season. He was third with 34 goal contributions. He was third in the entirety of the top 5 leagues. Like, we're not talking about some guy who we're taking a bit of a risk on. This is clearly a guy who contributes, and I think he was right up there again this season. Now, I can't find the numbers on the fly here, but you were sort of talking about it there. I think, well, 2 things. Firstly, the combinations, which I'll come back to, and secondly, I think the Premier League experience. I wonder if, as we go on, as the Premier League gets further and further away from, or certainly feels like it's getting further and further away from other leagues in terms of its style. There were some numbers recently talking about how, despite reputation, the Premier League has now become the most counter-attacking counter-attacking league in the top 5 leagues, which is not something that I would have called a couple of years ago, but that's where we are in terms of fast break shots and fast break goals. In terms of the amount of strikers who are now, or just players who are now, not quite replicating what they promised to do in the Premier League, to have someone who is proven like Ollie Watkins in the Premier League. And also, when we look at what's worked at Arsenal over the last couple of years, so in terms of, you look at Declan Rice and Leandro Trossard and Raya and Ramsdale to an extent, and a lot of the signings that we made that have worked have been intra-Premier League signings. So I think there's a lot to this. And then you look at the deal as well in terms of the price, but also what you said there about the combination. If you sign an Ollie Watkins alongside someone who maybe, because as we have to be fair, I don't think anything Ollie Watkins does is going to be elite, blow our socks off just in isolation on his own. But I think if you bring him in alongside, let's say, a Rodrigo, or you bring him in alongside a Leao, pick your favorite player here who has a couple of elite skills that are the best thing in the world. It makes so much sense to me. And also, maybe we don't want to get into this, but if Arsenal are able to facilitate sales for Trossard or Martinelli, maybe there is 3, and an Ollie Watkins is a third. I would look at someone like for me, currently my favorite pairing is Sesko and Rodrigo. That's like my pairing at the minute. But if you got an Ollie Watkins in as basically your Trossard replacement, I can't think of a better summer than that. Like, that really is an unbelievable summer. So we haven't even necessarily mentioned the fact that he can play multiple positions as well. That's another string to his bow. So it makes a lot of sense. The only thing I can hear people pushing back on is probably the age. And I know we've joked about it, but do you have any genuine concerns about the age?
When I'm buying somebody for £45 million, if they're giving me 2 to 3 seasons of top production, which I believe he has in him, I have 0 qualms about the age. And one thing that we actually haven't talked about, and it's worth talking, guys, I hate saying this, he's a fan of Arsenal. Like, when I'm looking at this in terms of application, and I'm looking at the age gap, let's call it, the fall off, let's call it. First off, this isn't a striker that's relying on his pace in order to generate most of his chances. He never has, ever. He's always adapted his pace, so his play style won't get affected from any physical concerns. But when you're recruiting me like a 30-year-old player who has had the journey he's had, that Ollie Watkins, I think you should read out his journey, to be honest, because it's quite atypical in terms of when he's got to
Athletic, Newton Town, Exeter City, then became a pro at Exeter City to 2017, went out on loan in 2014-15 to Weston-super-Mare, spent 3 years at Brentford, and then came to Aston Villa and got his England call-up in 2021.
And so, by the way, when I'm trying to say this, he's old, but he doesn't have miles on him. Like the miles on the top level have been really when he's 27. So like in terms of the age thing, it's even less than people say because he didn't accumulate those miles when he was a youth player. This isn't a Marcus Rashford or Bukayo Saka that started at 18 and already had 5,000 minutes by the age of 21. Like this isn't the case. Like most of his miles have been accumulated at the age of 27, 28, 29, right? Those are when the high miles started. So even from that perspective, logically, there's less. But I do believe him being a fan is something that is significant. Him being a fan of Arsenal means he will do the extra yards. By the way, he's also one of the most professional players I've seen. To get to where he's gotten from where he started comes from a supreme dedication to the craft, to training, and all the things that you look for in a post-30 athlete. Yeah. Do you have the mentality, the professionalism to continue to do all the little things you need to do to keep yourself at the top? Dear God, add somebody who's a fan, who's wanted to play for your club. Come on, mate, you're gonna go the extra mile. And I think that's an important part of the analysis. In the same way as Semenyo, I like it is a factor because these players will go the extra yards in order to maximize their time at their club. Of the life, like their love club.
Yeah, absolutely. If I ever got anywhere near the skill level, I would run a bit harder for Arsenal. You just would. It's just one of those things. Yeah. We all have hearts, right? And I think. I don't want to underplay that. I also don't want to underplay the Premier League experience, but also on the age thing as well. Just in the context of the project, we don't have time. We don't have time. So it really doesn't bother me. And I think when I'm looking at dream summers, I'm looking at, as I say, my two are Sesko and Rodrigo. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I can kind of break it down for people another time. But I really wouldn't hate a Rodrigo Watkins summer. And one of the things that goes for it is that ability to just hit the ground running. And this project needs players who are going to come in and contribute now, today, tonight. Yeah. Like, he may not contribute at the elite level, and I think there are people who will be saying that he's not the guy, because of certain limitations. Okay, neither George or I are saying sign Watkins and that's your summer done. No one's saying that. I don't think it's always in conjunction. And if you can get the other stuff you need, the other skills gaps in the team done, Ollie Watkins, especially at the price, makes so much sense. So it's difficult to read off social media and YouTube comments and stuff what people really think, and who knows. But I think there is some sneering at this, and I will come back to it. Two things. I think in the player himself, the thing I said at the top, because he, apart from that shot across his body, for me doesn't have the one absolute elite skill, we underrate it. And secondly, we're used to the name. We're used to the name, guys. Because we've seen Watkins play. It doesn't feel exotic. It doesn't feel exciting. We've seen him for England. We probably know his flaws a little bit better. All those sorts of things. Šeško and Rodrigo and Gyökeres, these guys are exciting. They're new names. They're new exciting ideas to us. They're going to come in and change our life. But actually, it's like that thing when you go abroad and you're like, oh my God, I could move here. I could so move here. And then you think about the realities of actually living that place, and you go, well, I can't get to Deliveroo, and I can't get, I can't see my family, and I can't, and you actually think about it. Sometimes familiarity is better. So, as I said, I think to conclude, we're probably on a similar page here. Watkins on his own, for me, not enough. Watkins in combination makes so much sense.
And I would even go a step further that I believe a Watkins value guarantees more. Like, just factually with the value, this is part of the debate, because I'd go a step further, mate. Like, when you're talking about the whole Sesko and Rodrigo versus now having Watkins with Rodrigo, it means I can attract a Brian Mbeumo. Like, I can ask for a third signing in that value, right? Like, again, it's a little bit more, but you can start to make concessions. Like, okay, maybe it's not Rodrigo, but maybe you do Nico Williams, Watkins, and Mbeumo. That those kind of things start to become possible when you get a value. And I want to end on this because, again, a lot of people will say, so you're actually not excited about the player. It's more what he could represent. No. Let's have this right. He is a third player in terms of the golden boot chaser in an Isak-less world. Like, I don't want to get away from the fact that despite the value, he walks in and will compete to be a third place in the Golden Boot chase for that. If Isak is not attainable, and you're saying Haaland is next, Watkins is officially in the last 2 years third as far as a production standpoint. So not just that, like I see a lot of reasons why this makes sense. I could understand it. As far as win now forwards go, he is the most affordable win now forward on the market that allows Arsenal to really change their attacking unit to potentially have more than they would relying on a prospect.
Yeah.
And I think I'm excited about certain prospects. I'm not black and white about what this summer looks like. But if you're talking about Watkins, you cannot deny the potential context of recruiting a player who has been third in the Golden Boot chase for the last 2 years while simultaneously giving you the room to do more forwards. And it's something that I'm seriously entertaining.
Yeah. Versatility as well. And we also speak about a lot of the time solving our specific issues, what Arsenal's issues are. I think if you go, just to go back to the scout, if you go and watch in terms of what he does on the transition, I think he massively helps. So yeah, look, there's so much going for him. There's some things against him. But as we say, in combination, I think there is so much here. So be interesting to see what we do. Really interesting, and interesting to see where he ends up, because I suspect no matter what happens with Arsenal, I think he will move. And sometimes it's interesting where players move and you sort of go, oh, they wanted him as well. And, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't pick him up. Yeah. If a Bayern Munich look at him, if another big club go, actually, there's a lot of value here. So I don't think we should sneer at this at all. As we say, if you want to go check out the clips, please do, to hear more Ollie Watkins prop. Thank you all for being here. As always, you can check out the other episodes of Scat that we mentioned and all the other stuff that you get on the Patreon and YouTube side as well. We will have all sorts of content out for you over the next couple of weeks. And yeah, just hopefully stay alive to things. We put out a Zuba stream on Wednesday, I think it was, discussing the deal. And we had a scout on him as well. Loads of stuff. Enough promo. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, George.
Thank you, good sir.
Thanks so much for being here. And thanks for keeping it Arsenal.